It's funny, the things you remember. I can still see Sarah, standing in the middle of our backyard. 40 people around her, all smiling, cheering. She was holding a champagne glass, her eyes sparkling, tears streaming down her face as she announced to everyone that we were having a baby. And I just stood there, my arm around her waist, a perfect smile plastered on my face, like I didn't already know the child wasn't mine. That day, the sun was bright, the decorative balloons tied to the fence swayed gently in the breeze. There was a cake with blue frosting that said "Baby makes 3." And it felt like my entire world was collapsing in slow motion. Like a building I'd meticulously inspected and approved was suddenly caving in, silently. Because I already had the audio recording on my phone. The one that proved she'd been seeing her boss for 7 months. The thing about betrayal, it hits you in waves. That first second, you have a choice. You can detonate everything. Just explode. Or you can go cold. Methodical. And I've always been the kind of person who needs to see the whole picture, document everything, before I make a move. I'd known for exactly 11 days that she was carrying someone else's child, planning to put my name on that birth certificate. It all started so, mundanely. Like these things often do. I came home early one August afternoon from a construction site in Dallas. Concrete pour got delayed. Sarah's laptop was open on the kitchen counter, still logged into her email. I wasn't snooping, not really. I was just walking past, and then I saw it. A message preview that popped up, "Last night was incredible." From someone named Mark. My brain, it tried to make it innocent for about 5 seconds. Maybe it was a work thing? A congratulatory email? But then reality crashed in. Hard. I didn't say anything. Not a word. My face didn't even change when she came downstairs 20 minutes later, asking about dinner. I just filed it away. And I started paying attention. To things I'd been ignoring for months. She'd been staying late at work, twice a week, since March. Changed her phone password in April. Started meeting a personal trainer at weird hours, coming back without looking like she'd broken a sweat. And I'd explained it all away. Because you want to believe. You want to believe the person you built your life with couldn't do that. That first week, I just watched her. Noted the patterns. She had no idea I was running a completely different set of calculations than she thought we were both working from. For days I pulled our shared phone records. Hundreds of texts to a number not saved in her contacts, going back to February. She'd deliberately left it unsaved, thinking it would look less suspicious than a name. But that kind of operational security only works if your husband isn't the type to cross-reference timestamps with his own calendar. Every single time she'd told me she was working late, or meeting Jessica for drinks, or visiting her mom, she'd sent or received messages from that number within the same hour. Mark Thompson. Her direct supervisor at the marketing firm where she'd worked for 3 years. Married. 2 kids, according to his LinkedIn profile. Apparently comfortable enough to use his personal cell for the affair. I created a hidden folder on my personal laptop. Started saving screenshots, metadata timestamps, built this timeline. March, they were cautious, flirty. April, explicit about meeting in hotel rooms around Houston. June, she was telling him she loved him. July, talking about how they wished they could be together openly. The real damage, though, that's where the deleted messages came in. I used a backup program, installed it on our home computer in Austin that she synced her phone to every night. And there it was. Early August, she told him she was pregnant. They had this whole conversation about whose it was. Based on timing, she literally said the chances were 70-30 in his favor. But that it didn't matter. Because I'd never question it. Messages about how I was stable, reliable, would be a good father. About how she couldn't leave me because I made twice what Mark did, and her lifestyle would take a hit. Maybe in a few years, when his kids were older, they could figure something out. But for now, this was the practical choice. I read those messages sitting in my truck outside a construction site in San Antonio during lunch. And I felt this cold clarity settle over me. Like reading an incident report about someone else's life. She'd calculated it. Run the numbers. Decided I was the better financial option, even if Mark was the one she actually wanted. 2 years earlier, when my granddad left me some money, we'd signed a postnuptial agreement. She'd agreed easily, said she'd never want my family's money anyway. Now I understood that agreement was going to protect me from losing everything. The first pregnancy announcement came 3 weeks after I found that initial message. By then, I'd already met with Mr. Henderson, a lawyer who specialized in paternity fraud. He told me audio recordings were legal in our state if one party consented. So, anything I recorded in my own vehicle or home was admissible. And if I could prove she deliberately misrepresented paternity, I'd have a strong position. Sarah sometimes borrowed my truck. Her car was scheduled for an oil change. That Tuesday night, I installed a voice-activated recording app on an old smartphone. Wrapped it in black electrical tape. Wedged it under the passenger seat. She took my truck Wednesday morning, just like I knew she would. That afternoon, during her lunch break, she called Mark. They talked for 11 minutes. He asked if she was sure about going through with it. And she said, "It's his. I'll put my husband's name on everything. And honestly, Mark, this is better for everyone because Caleb will never leave once there's a kid involved." She talked about me like I was a safety net she was actively exploiting. My commitment? Just another resource to be managed. I listened to that recording 3 times after I retrieved the phone that evening. Just to be sure. Then saved it to 4 different cloud services. Sent a copy to Mr. Henderson. I went to that backyard party knowing exactly what I was going to do. Just not when. Timing matters when you're planning to detonate someone's entire life. Sarah kept touching her stomach, smiling at me like we were sharing this beautiful secret. Her parents talked about grandchildren. And I played the role of excited father-to-be, mentally reviewing every piece of evidence. Screenshots, phone records, hotel receipts from her credit card statements. And that audio. Proving she knew the baby probably wasn't mine, and had decided to trap me anyway. I called Mr. Henderson from my truck on the way home. Told him I was ready. He said he'd have the divorce papers ready for Monday morning. Said the evidence package I'd built was one of the most thorough he'd seen in 20 years of family law. She wanted to announce it. Wanted everyone to see us as this perfect couple. I let her have that moment. I knew it would make what came next hit even harder. She thought she was trapping me with a pregnancy that would lock me into 18 years of supporting another man's child. She had no idea I'd spent the last 3 weeks building a case that would leave her with nothing. Expose exactly what kind of person she really was. 3 weeks after that first party, the second one happened. Sarah had no idea it would be the last time most of those people would ever speak to her again. She wanted a gender reveal. Like one public celebration wasn't enough. She planned this elaborate thing, colored smoke bombs, a hired photographer. I told her it was a great idea. Even helped her arrange the tables. The whole time, I was running through my plan like a final safety inspection before a controlled demolition. Mr. Henderson had filed the divorce papers that morning. But they wouldn't be served until Monday. That gave me 1 weekend to make sure everyone who mattered knew the truth before Sarah could spin her own version. I'd loaded the audio recording onto a Bluetooth speaker I'd hidden in the garage. Printed copies of the most damning text messages, tucked them into a folder in my truck. Rehearsed what I was going to say until it felt like reading a technical report, not destroying my marriage in front of 40 witnesses. She wore a white sundress that showed off her small bump. Kept saying how grateful she was everyone could make it. Her mom fussed over her. Her dad talked to me about setting up a college fund. Mark wasn't there, of course. She'd specifically told me she didn't want work people at family events. Darkly funny, considering. Daniel, my best friend, showed up early. Caught my eye. I'd told him 2 days earlier what was about to happen. Needed at least one person there who wouldn't think I'd completely lost it. One of Sarah's coworkers, Ben, was there too, with his girlfriend. Made a mental note. He'd witnessed this. Take it back to the office. Exactly what I wanted. Jessica was running around, taking candid shots. Sarah's parents held court near the food table. I stood next to my wife, my hand on her lower back, thinking about how she'd told Mark I was too stable to ever suspect anything. The reveal was set for 4 o'clock. Good lighting for photos. Sarah kept checking her phone for confirmation from the photographer. An hour earlier, I'd sent her a text from a burner app number, pretending to be the photographer, saying I was running late. Accident on the highway. She kept refreshing. Waiting for an update that would never come. She started getting anxious around 3:45. Should we wait? Go ahead without the professional photos? I told her we should just use Jessica's camera. These moments were about family anyway. She bought it. Completely. Everyone gathered in a semicircle. Sarah was practically vibrating with excitement, explaining that we'd both pull the tabs at the same time. Find out together. I stood there, holding a blue smoke bomb I had no intention of setting off. Watching her smile at me like I was about to share the happiest moment of her life. And all I could think about was that audio clip, where she called me a sure thing who'd never leave once there's a kid involved. I let her finish her little speech about how this baby was a blessing. Waited for the applause to die down. And then I said it. I have something I want to add before we do the reveal. The shift in tone was immediate. Everyone could tell. Sarah's smile got confused, tight around the edges. She looked at me, trying to figure out what I was doing. I said that before we celebrated this pregnancy, I thought everyone should know my wife had been having an affair with her boss, Mark Thompson, since February. And the baby she was carrying had a 70% chance of being his, based on her own admission in text messages. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the neighbor's wind chimes 3 houses down. Sarah's face went through this rapid progression, shock, then panic, then anger. It would have been fascinating if it wasn't happening to someone I'd once loved. She started, "What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?" But I was already walking toward the garage. I could hear murmuring behind me. I grabbed the Bluetooth speaker. Connected my phone. The audio recording played for everyone in that backyard. Sarah's voice, crystal clear. Telling Mark the baby was his. But she'd put my name on everything because I'd never leave once there was a kid involved. And Mark really needed to stop worrying because she had it all figured out. I watched her face go white. Watched her parents' expressions collapse into confusion and horror. Jessica's camera dropped to her side. She stared at her sister like she was seeing a stranger. Sarah tried to grab my phone. I stepped back. Let the recording keep playing through the part where she talked about how I made good money and she wasn't about to give up her lifestyle for some romantic fantasy with a married man. Her mom made this wounded sound. Her dad's face went completely blank. I saw several people, including Ben, pull out their own phones to record what was happening. It was too surreal to just be witnessed. Ben was already typing something. Probably texting other people from their office. I knew by Monday morning, everyone at that marketing firm would know exactly what Sarah and Mark had done. I turned off the speaker. Said I'd filed for divorce that morning. Paternity testing would be part of the legal proceedings. And I wanted everyone here to know the truth before Sarah had a chance to rewrite history. She was crying, trying to say something about how it wasn't what it sounded like, how I was taking things out of context. But her own voice had just played for everyone, telling Mark she was deliber. Ately trapping me with a baby that probably wasn't mine. Jessica was backing away from her sister like she was physically repulsed. Their mom was crying into their dad's shoulder. People near the back were already heading for their cars. Daniel caught my eye. Gave me a tiny nod. I picked up my keys from the patio table, where I'd left them for this moment. I told Sarah her stuff would be packed and ready for pickup by Tuesday. All communication from now on through my lawyer. And she should probably call Mark. Let him know his wife would be getting some interesting information in the next 24 hours. The last thing I saw as I walked out of that backyard was Sarah. Standing alone. In her white sundress. The unlit smoke bomb still in her hand. Surrounded by people who were either staring at her or deliberately not looking at her. I felt nothing except this cold satisfaction. She'd gotten exactly the public spectacle she'd wanted. Just not the kind she'd planned for. I heard her calling my name as I got in my truck. But I didn't turn around. Didn't give her the confrontation she was probably desperate for. I drove to Daniel's place in Denver, where I'd already moved half my important belongings earlier that week. She'd wanted everyone to see us as the perfect couple. Expanding our perfect family. She'd orchestrated this whole performance. And I'd let her have her stage. Right up until the moment I used it to show everyone exactly who she really was. I spent that first night at Daniel's place, staring at my phone. The messages piled up. 53 calls from Sarah. 22 from her mother. 16 texts that started with apologies and ended with accusations. I deleted every single one without reading past the first line. Daniel ordered pizza. He didn't ask me how I was feeling. He already knew. We just sat there, watching basketball highlights, while my wife's entire life collapsed in real time across town. I'd blocked Sarah's number by midnight. The voicemails were getting increasingly desperate. Things about how we could work through this, how the baby changed everything, how I was being cruel by not even giving her a chance to explain. The thing she didn't understand was I'd already given her dozens of chances. Every single night, for 7 months, she'd come home, kissed me, let me believe we were building something real. I didn't owe her anything now. Except the legal minimum. Monday morning, I sent an email to Mark's wife, Emily. Used the contact info I'd found on her public Facebook profile. I kept it simple. Factual. Like an incident report. Attached screenshots of the messages between Mark and Sarah. Included the audio recording. Wrote exactly 3 sentences explaining her husband had been having an affair with my wife since February, and I thought she deserved to know before making any decisions about her own marriage. She responded 6 hours later. 2 words, thank you. I found out later from Daniel, who knew someone in their neighborhood, that Emily had called a locksmith before Mark even got home from work that day. Mark tried calling me twice that week. I let both go to voicemail. His messages were this bizarre mix of anger and pleading. Blaming me for ruining his family, while also trying to convince me the affair hadn't meant anything serious. I saved those voicemails. Forwarded them to Mr. Henderson. They were essentially admissions. Watching Mark scramble to control the damage he'd caused himself was the closest thing to entertainment I had during those first few days. The HR investigation at Sarah's company started Wednesday. Ben submitted a formal complaint about a supervisor having an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate. He'd included video footage from the gender reveal party, showing the audio recording playing for everyone. Both Sarah and Mark were put on immediate administrative leave. No pay. HR went through their work emails. Found exactly what I knew they'd find. Company policy was clear. and using company resources to coordinate their affair made it even worse. They were both officially terminated Friday afternoon. I only know the timeline because Sarah sent me a long email about how I'd destroyed her career and reputation over a mistake she'd made when she was confused and vulnerable. Completely ignoring the fact she'd spent 7 months deliberately deceiving me, planning paternity fraud. I met with Mr. Henderson every few days. The divorce proceedings moved faster than typical. Sarah's lawyer knew they had no leverage. Advised her to settle quickly. The paternity test was scheduled for after the baby was born. But we'd already established grounds for divorce based on adultery with documented evidence. And that postnuptial agreement was about to do exactly what it was designed to do. She was asking for the house, spousal support, half of everything. But Mr. Henderson had put together a case showing she'd committed fraud. Deliberately misled me about paternity. We offered her a settlement, $20,000 and her car in exchange for a clean break. No spousal support. No claim to the house or my inheritance. Her lawyer convinced her to take it. Going to trial would cost more than she'd ever recover. All the evidence would become public record. The divorce was finalized in early December. 11 weeks after the backyard party. The entire hearing at the family court building in Phoenix lasted less than 10 minutes. Everything settled in advance. I walked out feeling lighter than I had in months. Not happy, exactly. But free. From the constant weight of pretending everything was fine. Sarah tried to approach me in the parking lot. I kept walking. I heard her yelling something about how I'd never know if I'd thrown away my own child. But I didn't turn around. I already knew the answer didn't matter anymore. The baby was born in March. I got a letter from her lawyer requesting paternity testing. I filed a motion to dismiss based on the settlement agreement she'd signed, which explicitly waived any right to establish paternity. The judge agreed. Didn't even schedule a hearing. I ran into Jessica at a cafe in downtown Portland, Oregon, in April. She apologized for not reaching out sooner. Said she'd been processing everything. Trying to figure out what she could have missed in her sister. She told me Sarah was living with their parents, working retail. Nobody in marketing would hire her after word got around. Mark had moved to another state after his own divorce went through. I thanked her for the information, but I didn't ask for details. I'd already moved on. And I could tell she was looking for some kind of closure or forgiveness that I wasn't equipped to give. I'd started seeing someone new. Olivia. She worked in scheduling at one of my regular job sites. She knew the basics of what had happened, but she didn't treat me like I was damaged. We'd been dating for 6 weeks. It felt easy. In a way my marriage never had. No constant calculations. No second guessing. Just 2 people who enjoyed each other's company. Without the weight of betrayal hanging over everything. I'm not the guy who got cheated on anymore. I'm just me. And that's enough. Does planning paternity fraud forfeit your right to a quiet divorce, or does methodical self-protection cross into something darker?